All right, in this tutorial we're going to create this fern. And what it's comprised of is polygons for the branch and the pot, and then NURB plane for all the fern leaves you see. I'll provide you with the PNG with the alpha information on the fern leaf, and you just have to apply it to the model based on this tutorial. Now, these two surfaces, the pot and the plant, are both polygons, and they have the proxy on. So I'll hit 1 on the keyboard so we can get a little bit more clear about what the geometry looks like prior to using the proxy and then ultimately using the polygon smooth tool. So let's get started. I'm going to start by creating a polygon primitive cylinder. Now, I've chosen to use the interactive creation tool because I can now click on this tool and I can kind of introduce it in the orientation and area that I would like it to be. Now I'm going to reduce the polygon count the way we did for our banana. So I want to make sure that my channels window is available. Now if you don't see it, it looks something like this or something different. Simply click on that series of pages kind of stacked on top of each other in the extreme upper right hand corner of the interface, and by clicking on that eventually you're going to see this window appear. Now I'm looking for the input window to change the count of my polygon faces. So if I put my cursor over the top of my layer window, bunch of dotted lines here, I can click with my left mouse and I can open up that extended menu. Often enough, you may have your geometry selected, but you don't see the specs or the attributes appearing here. Click on that word polycylinder and they will appear. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to reduce the subdivision axes from the default 20. And let's make it, I'm going to go with 4. I'll hit return. You know what, let's bump it up to 5. There we go. Make it a little bit more organic and roundish when we smooth it out, not so boxy. Now the subdivision heights, let's go with 8 for that. All right, so you can see that we've got these new polygon faces, the reduction and then the increase in our subdivisions. Now, what we had done previously was to taper this so it starts to look like perhaps the the stump of that fern plant. I'm going to be using my vertices. I'll go to vertex, and I'm going to start by tapering it at the top. Now, what we covered on Thursday was how we can affect gradually dissipating that effect on a series of vertices based on the ones that are selected. So here at the top, I've got the very tip selected. And I'm going to be scaling and I'm going to be moving. Let's start the scale first. So I'm going to hit B on the keyboard. If you recall, B gives you the soft select. Now you need to determine exactly how much influence you want going down from top to bottom on this piece of geometry. So I'm going to double click on the move tool, the scale tool. We'll go to scale first. So I'll double click on the scale tool and I'm going to open up the soft selection. And now I'm going to start to scale this. Now what we can do is we can introduce the scale, and then if there's too much or too little based on the fall off radius, the higher the number, the more influence, the smaller the number, the less influence. So if I wanted to, I could drag to the right and you can see it kind of updates virtually on the model itself. So this is where you'll go in and you can determine if that's what you want. Now, what I would probably do instead of trying to get it all in one scaling, I might drop this down a bit. I think I'll drop my influence down to about, let's go with 8. And then I'll scale, and then I'll move down and maybe grab the 4th or 3rd row down, and I'll scale there as well. So I'm gradually tapering it instead of trying to do it all in one adjustment. All right, so I think that works better. You'll play around with it. You'll come up with your own solutions, I'm sure. So I've got it tapered pretty much the way I want. Now as I go, I'm going to be hitting 3 on the keyboard so I get a better idea of exactly where this is going. Now I'm okay with the circumference of this at the base and the bottom, but I want this to curve and be more organic. the way we bent the banana and the way we edited our pear and apple so that it doesn't look machine generated. I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard, and now I'm going to start the top once again, and I'm going to get my move tool. I'll hit W, double click on the move tool, so I get my fall off radius and with my soft select, and I'll start to move this, and I'm just going down the line, adjusting groups perhaps rather than just doing it once. And in doing this, we can kind of make this a little bit more organic. I'm going to hit 3 on the keyboard to go to my proxy, and that's looking pretty good. I'll right click, go back to my object mode. I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard, and I'm going to save. I'm going to close out the soft select. We're going to be introducing a new tool now, and it's called the Polygon Extrude tool. And we want to add it to our shelf. So I'm going to hold down my Command Shift, and I'm going to go to Edit Mesh. All right, and at the very top you'll see the word Extrude. So I'll click on that, and if I've got more than one, I'll go ahead and delete that. Essentially, this tool is going to allow me to pull out extra branches based on the polygon faces. So I'm going to add a new branch right about in this area. Now if I was to extrude this face, it would be rather a wide face. So I'm going to select this edge where my vertex is right now, and I'm going to move it up. So I'll right click on my geometry, I'll choose edge, and I'm going to double click on that line. Now I've got my soft select still on, so I'm going to hit B on the keyboard to take it off. And now I'm going to move that path up and over a bit closer to the one that's directly above it. And you'll see when we start to extrude, this face will give us yet another branch. So I'm going to go back to my object mode and save. Now the way this works is we go into our sub-edit mode. I'm going to right click, choose face, and I'm just going to pick a random face from this series in this area. I'll click on this one. When I click on that orange box emanating from that plane, it introduces my 3 tools for transform against that face. If I was to grab that Z arrow now and pull that vertex arrow out, you can see it's giving me another piece of geometry. Now this is like one-stop editing. If I want to taper that now, so that starts to look more like the top of this, I could click on any of these boxes at the end of the vertexes. So if I click on the yellow one, it activates the middle. That's what I'm after right now. So I'll click on the light blue box, drag down to the lower left corner of my viewport a bit, and now if I wanted to, I could get my arrows and redirect that. Now I want to add another section of polygons. So I will click on the little orange box again up here on my shelf, and I'll pull out another section, and I'll move it up like that. Maybe I'll start to rotate it so I can direct this branch upward a bit. And as branches do, I'm going to taper this once again so it becomes narrower. Now if I wanted to, I could hit 3 on the keyboard to get an idea of what I've got. I'm going to hit 1 on it again. I think it's a good idea to make sure you're on 1 and you see the actual geometry as you edit this. For a couple of reasons. First of all, it's easier to see what's going on where these vertices are and this face is. And secondly, the CPU might not be up to it if you're using a simple laptop or a computer that wasn't equipped for 3D modeling. All right, I'm going to click and add one more polygon group. I'll drag that up, rotate it up a bit, and click on the scale box of one of the vertices so I can get at the middle, and I'll draw that in and hit Command S to save and continue.